This part of the service is dedicated to our loved ones that have passed, both members and friends of the church. We can start with Billy Abner, Bruce Austin, Bill Ballin. He was the partner of David McCarthy, who was our church deacon back during Reverend Bowe's time. Jim Beebe, and he was the father of one of Bruce Beebe, who was also a member of the church. Ron Bergeron, he built our portable altar, which is still in the boardroom. We're using it for something else now, but that's the altar we used when we went to the Lambda Center or Pride picnics and like that. And he also made us a large wooden cross that's someplace here in this building. Billy Boots, she was the queen mother of the female impersonators, and her partner Tubby Boots of Fort Lauderdale. Sally Braden, she was our food pantry manager, and her partner Gloria Lesko was the driver and helper, and Gloria also took care of the landscaping at the church and delivered the food from our distributors to the pantry. Carl Brown, who was Tom Brown's dad. Reverend James Buchanan, he was a spiritualist minister from Cassadaga, but he attended our nightly services when we were up at 76 North Halifax. Jim Burkhalter, Cecil Burnett, John Cadzo. He was one of the friends that started the Lambda Center back in the 80s, and he was an AIDS activist now living, well, he's now passed, but he had moved to Fort Lauderdale. Alan Columbia, Barbara Cook, Rick Crowley, Ruth Gronk. She was the partner of Janet Brown, who moved back to Kansas after a time after Ruth passed. Ruth also was the one that designed the landscaping at the LPGA I-95 exit. Matthew Dilworth, brothers Donnie Dudenhofer and Kurt Dudenhofer. Kirk was a deacon in our church also. Bill Finn, Eve Gillen. Her husband has moved to where he can't come to church anymore, but Eve was Eric's wife. Ed Grinzel, Hazel Holt, Robert Honnold, and he was a faithful worker in the food pantry, and he also would help me from time to time in the office. Faye Kelly. Faye was a partner of Charlene Rywat. Lowell Kelm was Bodie's partner. Bonnie Kennedy and her husband David Kennedy, husband and wife, they both passed. Scott Klein, Walter Konak, Gloria Lesko was the partner of Sally Brayton, who worked in the pantry. Reverend Jean Levy, she was our first pastor when our church was called St. Peter's, and her partner was Barbara Stump. Helen Martell, and her partner was Sandra Matthews. Gretchen Martin, and her husband Patty. Michael McRae, he was one of the very early members of the church, and his partner Kent Stevenson. Dennis Morano. Reverend Ted Morgan, he was our second pastor. He used to preach, sing, and play the piano. William Murphy. He was the organizer of church dinners and potlucks. And he was one of our early lay delegates before I became a delegate, in fact. Donna, Mom Norris, was a mom to many people here in the church. Gil O'Donnell, Roy Petnella, partner of Russ Van Allen. Rocky Wayne Pickett, partner of John Burgess. And the picnic table is dedicated in his honor, and there's a plaque in our hallway. Reverend Larry Ponder. Robert Cortano. He was a world traveler, writer, and artist. Bill Rabola was one of our deacons. I think Jim Lynch was pastor during that time. Charlie and Regal and Bill Zimmerman, they both have passed. They were together, I think it was either 50, I have here 53 years, but I was corrected after last year's reading of this, and someone told me it's either 54 or 55, so I know it was many years. Reverend John Rogers, he was a retired Presbyterian minister. He was one of my neighbors, and he turned out to be our church organist and piano player. Tim Ryan. Holly Ann Scott. She was a locksmith and one of our very first transgender members. Tony Silvestro, partner of Dominic Romano and father of Tony Silvestro. That was their son, adopted son. Gene Sims. Michael Smolin was a partner of our third pastor, Bob Lynch. Al Steady. He was responsible for the name change from St. Peter's to Hope. And how that happened was Al was a special friend of mine. Bob Finch, myself. There may have been others where he said to the pastor, he said, is what this church needs is hope. We were St. Peter's at the time. And we actually changed the name from St. Peter's to Hope. Mark Fairhaw and his partner, Paul Thompson. Will Varick, he was administrative assistant to Reverend Lee Carlton. Clarence Vian, the father of Larry Vian. They both were faithful members, and Larry, when he passed, bequeathed the funds to enable us to purchase the property on South Ridgewood, and there's a plaque in our entranceway honoring him. Jeff Walker, Reverend Tim Ward, he was our music minister during the time of Lee Carlton. Jackson Weaver, he was a faithful pantry worker, and he also was the only member that ever sued the church. I won't go into that any further. Stan Weatherall, he was a church treasurer during Reverend Bo McDaniel's. Edward Wisniewski, partner of Bill Pace. They were members when they lived here. They now, Bill lives in Fort Lauderdale, and Edmund died, I think it's 2 years ago now. Steve Womack, Douglas Witten, Jim Hagan, and these members have passed in 16. Gregory Humphrey, the husband of Linda and father of Rashiki. Jerry Legg, partner of Frank. Margaret Wickham, and Dennis Bly. And that we're up to like 70 past departed members. Thank you.